I'm happy to be able to join the BCAP meeting, even though I was not able to join in physically. So in the previous, I think the presentation by the Thailand delegation, he talked much about details of their social protection programs and challenges in policy. For my part, I will talk more about the process of introducing the program budgeting in Korea, and also how our programmatic budget classification has been evolved in relation to the performance budgeting and also the medium-term budgeting. So I will share then my screen, right? Then, okay. So first, I will talk about how we started the program budgeting in Korea, and then I will talk about the afterwards efforts to make the programmatic budget classification useful for the performance of budgeting or for other decision-making purpose. So in our case, the program budgeting was one component of PFM reforms in the mid-2000s. At that time, we basically introduced very comprehensive PFM reforms, including MTAP, top-down budgeting, performance monitoring and evaluation, program budget classification, and integrated financial management information system and accrual accounting. So at that time, we tried to introduce all the kind of the best practices available globally. And then, as you can see, this is the timeline of the PFM reforms at that time. But if you look at this, you can see some interesting things. Here, the program budget classification actually introduced in 2006. But before that, we already kind of introduced the medium-term expenditure framework and the top-down budgeting and also the performance budgeting too. So, but ideally, we may want to have the program budget classification first, and then based on that, we may develop the medium-term expenditure, the plan, and also to conduct the program performance monitoring and evaluation, right? But in our case, all those reform efforts were pursued in a parallel way by different units in the Ministry of Planning and Budget at that time. So because of that, there are some peculiarities in our situation. So I will talk about that later because that became the problem later stage. So we try to make adjustment in the program budget classification later. So as you can see here, within 5 years, we introduced all the important reform elements. So we may call it a Big Bang approach. But some of the reform elements, there was some practical adjustment, especially in the program budget classification and accrual accounting. These things are more, as you can see, more labor intensive and also need the technical expertise. Also, it may require some organizational restructuring too. So because of that, there was some delays in introducing program budget classification and accrual accounting. And also, those reforms are entirely implemented by the executive branch initiatives without the knowledge of the legislature. But at the later stage, now legislature has been involved in this process too, during the process of giving legal foundation for the PFM reforms. And I will skip this. And then I will briefly go over what happened during the initial reform efforts in introducing the program budget classification. As you can see here, we established a reform unit, which is called Budget and Accounting Reinvention Office in May 2004. And then, but also we had different unit for the performance budgeting and also different unit for the MTEP. So that we can finish it in a within 5 years, within one single presidential term. So it may also reflect the Korean culture. Once we started, we have to finish it quickly. So it may not be theoretically or not sound approach, right? We may want to lay the ground with the program budget classification and also the IT systems. But before that, we already experimented and introduced the performance budgeting and MTEP. At that time, the special unit for the introducing the IFMIS and also the program budget accounting classification and accrual accounting, the unit was composed of 33 members, as you can see here. Delegates from the Ministry of Finance and Economy and Ministry of Public Administration and Ministry of Planning and Budget, and also the Board of Audit and Inspection was there, and the accounting experts and IT experts were the part of the team. And this is at the time the organization structure. And one of the missions for this unit is developing the programmatic budget classification. And then, so initially, we tried to develop the programmatic budget classification. There was not much acceptance from the line ministries, of course, but also even among the Ministry of Planning and Budget, especially the Budget Office, was not very coming forward with these efforts. They say, we are already doing fine. Why do we need another, different budget classification? Then we may lose our history of our budget, the information. So that was their concern. But continuous communication with the line ministries, the need for the developing program structure was accepted, and also for the Central Budget Authority, some restructuring of the Ministry of Planning and Budget was actually implemented. They reduced the number of the Central Budget Office, which is mostly focusing on the annual budget formulation process, to send the message that these reforms are changing the role of the Central Budget Authority, not just focusing on the annual budget process. From now on, we have to focus on the medium-term strategy and also the performance monitoring and evaluation issues, rather than just doing annual the budget formulation itself. So there was some organizational restructuring was happened at the Central Budget Authority, and it sent a very strong signal that this reform is not just exercise. You should be serious about it. And then at that time, we had some issues in developing program structure. I think in other countries may experience the same problem. So the first one is that how to handle the existing organizational structure. Because naturally, I think also many experts, international experts, also recommended that do not do organizational restructuring and programmatic budget classification development at the same time, because it may create all the chaos and too much burden to the government. So also in Korean case, we try to respect existing organizational structure rather than completely restructuring the existing organization. So in principle, we set the goal that program should correspond to the existing office or bureau level, and the sub-program will correspond to the team level. And we didn't develop the cross-cutting programs. It's also a very important issue. So I will talk about this later too. And So this means that we took very practical approach. The budget execution unit and the budget classification should be corresponding each other one-to-one to have the accountability mechanism in place. And also, we didn't do the distribution of overhead costs to each programs. We developed separate administrative support programs. So it may be some agencies or ministries, it can be a problem, right? Because especially some executing agencies, the share of the administrative support program may be too big in terms of the budget size. Then it may make the performance monitoring and evaluation, the scope is too narrow by not focusing on the administrative support programs. So this is another issue. We try to later stage by introducing accrual accounting, we try to address this issue too. So I'll talk about this later too. And then, so when we developing the program classification, the problem was that the line ministry was not happy about it, and also they did not have the technical capacity. So practically, the expert group and the Ministry of Planning and Budget actually gave some first draft to the line ministries, and then based on that, the line ministry developed their own program budget classification. Initially, the Ministry of Planning and Budget was just sending out, announcing the guidelines to the line ministries and wait for the response from the line ministries. But there was delays and delays. So they took more proactive actions. So they developed the draft in top-down way. And then they solicited the response from the line ministries. And so this is done. So I think that anyway, with the difficulties, the Korean case, we successfully developed programmatic budget classification. The success factors are like this: strong commitment from high-level decision makers. At that time, we had prudential support, and also the reform team's adaptive capacity to overcome challenge was there. And also, we tried to strategically communicate with the stakeholders, and also capacity building effort was there, even though it was difficult. And also practical adjustment of original plan was there. And then, so the problem is that even though in a Big Bang way, we were able to introducing the program budget classification, we did in a separate track, the MTAP and also performance budgeting was already implemented even without the programmatic budget classification. So as long as you can identify the program, the projects or the activities which is aiming for the same goals, actually you can do performance evaluation, right? As long as you can identify those activities and the projects, and you can make practical grouping for the purpose of the evaluation. So so at that time, in our case, we had two different systems. One kind of the performance management goal system, which is designed for the performance monitoring and evaluation, and the programmatic budget classification for the budgeting purpose. So their goal was actually the same, right? So there was not big difference, but there was some inconsistencies because the performance goal management system was developed in a more flexible way. So that means they not necessarily strictly adhere to the existing organizational structure. They sometimes combine different programs together for the purpose of performance management when they think it's more appropriate. So at the later stage, the National Assembly found out that there is some inconsistencies between the annual performance and plan submitted by the line ministries and the budget document submitted by the line ministries. So they found some inconsistencies into the two systems. So in 2010, they revised the National Finance Act, which is saying that the administration is required to make a structure of a performance goal management system and those of the programmatic budget classification consistent as much as possible. Between 2010 and 2013, during 3 years, we tried to make these two systems to make them the one-to-one mapping possible. But at the time, our concern was that if we just automatically adjust existing performance goal management system to the existing programmatic budget classification, then the performance then it may be the retreat from the ideal programmatic budget classification, because existing system is more kind of amenable to the existing structure, organizational structure, but performance goal management system is more advanced for the purpose of the performance management and evaluation. So theoretically, this is more ideal programmatic budget classification. So we try to make the existing program budget classification close to the existing performance goal management system rather than going backward. So, but as you can imagine, the line ministries are always conservative, so they want to keep make the performance goal management system to the existing programmatic budget classification, which is exactly matching the organizational structure. So there was some tensions and some compromise was made between 2000 and 2013. So after that, now the performance goal management system is like this. Previously, they had different performance goals and management projects, but now they are exactly corresponding to the programmed goals and sub-program goals. So now the budget document and the annual performance plan and report documents exactly became consistent. And then another reform was occurred in 2021 because at that time the Minister of the Ministry of Economy and Finance accidentally read their annual performance plan and report documents, and he found that especially the annual performance plan from the Ministry of Environment, and he want to see some the very obvious indicators like the water quality, air quality, and that kind of things. But he found that those information is very limited in the annual performance plan from the Ministry of Environment. More their indicators are more the technical and very closely matching what they are doing, rather than talking about the outcomes which citizens have more interest in that. So he raised the issue. We have a very thick performance plan paper here, but there is not useful information for the citizens in this document. So because based on that request, we try to find the ways how to make the performance budget classification the annual performance plan report more useful to the general citizens. And then we found that previously the performance indicators and the performance monitoring and evaluation, all those efforts are focused on the sub-program levels. Especially in our case, we try to identify ineffective programs and try to impose budget cuts on those programs. So that purpose, we try to go to more lower level, the programs, which is sub-program goals. But at that level, the indicators are, of course, we try to encourage the line ministries to use outcome indicators, but their indicators are not entirely citizen-oriented. So we try to now change our focus to the program goals rather than sub-program goals. So we try to encourage line ministries to use outcome indicators which the citizens has interest. So also we try to introduce more strategic information in the annual performance plan rather than very technical information in the document. So so that we found that still we found that we need to restructure existing program budget classification because it's still not amenable to match existing program with the citizen-oriented indicators. So we did exerted another effort to restructuring existing programmatic budget classification. Because of that, this is our guideline we given to the line ministries again in 2021. If you can come up with so if combine existing programs into one program, if they share the same outcome goals, or combining them make easier to set the outcome-oriented goals. Or you can divide existing programs if sub-programs or projects are not pursuing the same goals. And also you can move sub-programs or projects to the other programs if their policy goals are not close to other programs. So so the typical issue also raised the organizational, the reconciling the organizational structure and accounts with the programmatic budget classification. And also at this time, we also noticed that if we try to use the citizen-oriented outcome information, then maybe we need to think about the multi-ministerial policy goals rather than individual ministries' policy goals. So we also found this need too. And for the example of Ministry of Health and Welfare, because of these efforts, their number of programs was reduced from 29 to 18. And among the one example of the integrated programs are the following. Previously, the Ministry of Health and Welfare has different programs for each public hospitals, but which we combined them. So because of that, their performance indicator is more about the individual public hospitals citizen satisfaction, or other their performance, individual organizations performance information, rather than at the ministerial level citizen-oriented policy goals. So at the time we combined the 3 programs for the public hospitals together, which is specialized on infectious disease, so that we can come up with a more national level citizen-oriented outcome indicators. So that's one example of our effort in restructuring the existing programmatic budget classification. So okay, so yeah, that's it. So if you have any further questions, then I can happily to answer. Thank you.